On this week's show, discussing procurement redefined with Anwar Ghauche from Contrafor. In this week's news, full blast co-pilot, decarbonization, waste management, and more. All right, we're back. Jacob, it seems like it's been forever, my man. Where you been? What you been up to? How you doing?
Man, the winter got cold down here in the South, so we just kind of shut ourselves in, just let it kind of happen. Now we're starting to see a little bit more sun, so come back out.
You come up for air a little bit. What's cold? What is even cold
Yeah,
for
right?
you, man? You don't even know cold.
No, we don't. We're looking at like 45, and we're like, this is getting a little dicey, but we'll survive.
Yeah.
It's okay. We still haven't seen snow in over 2 years down here.
Oh,
so
man, I was just there, man, and I saw a warning, to limit your time outside. And I'm like, what's the weather? Oh, it's like 55. I'm like, I'm going out in a shorts and a t-shirt, man. Like, come on, people. But hey, that's the way it is. Anwar, thanks for sitting down with us today. Where are you coming to us from?
I'm in New York. You guys want cold? Come up here.
New York City, that's wet cold, man. You guys got humidity and cold. That's a different thing. That stuff chills you to your bones, man. But I love New York City, man. It's a great place to be. It's been a little up and down this year. Is it cold now again? I heard it was raining and warm.
If you want construction, there's nothing like New York. People are working whether it's rainy, whether it's snowy, or it's sunny out there. Construction doesn't stop here.
No, that city does not sleep. Construction does not stop. I was just there not too long ago and doing down in the meatpacking district, and then doing the walk up through that raised walkway. They took the old railway and turned it. What is that one called?
High Line.
Everybody's like, oh, look, there's jungle here. It's all grown up. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But look how close these buildings are. And this one's brand new. And this one's got to be 50, 60 years old. How did that happen?
Imagine the people that paid millions of dollars to have an apartment where everybody can look inside of their bedrooms, basically.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't think about that, but but yeah, some of the just feats of engineering, and then where that High Line ends in that area with all those big. I mean, those are super skyscrapers. Those are crazy.
That's where we are. That's the Hudson Yards. That's where we are. That's where our office is.
Dude, we're gonna have to meet up. That's I have a friend that lives up there, and I'm up and down there all the time now. And I love that bikeway that they built and everything. That's pretty cool.
It's good company here. Plenty of construction companies. I'm looking at a couple of offices.
That's
right outside
awesome.
of us.
Well, look, this is going to be a lot of fun. You guys are going to find out that there's a lot behind Anwar there. Before we get there, though, we got to pause for the cause.
Construction in general is a highly stressful environment, and you see the stress, and you always get the "I'm fine" answer. But I always try to dig a little deeper, because people say, I haven't been sleeping great, and I'm really eating crappy food, and I feel anxious, I feel depressed, I feel, we'll start to really get into those conversations and figure out what's going on. There's some great resources. And if you go to brentdarnell.com/resources, first, there's an emotional intelligence and physical symptoms survey test. So we get your emotional profile and we get your physical profile based on physical symptoms, and we can tell how your body's working. And then we can correlate those two. And if you're experiencing burnout, it will show up in probably both of those evaluations. It's free. You just download it and do it. And just so see where you are. And if burnout's the top 2 or 3 that pop up and show up there, I would pay attention and start to really look at what are you doing with stress and nutrition and sleep and exercise and daily reflection and those kinds of things that we know we need to do to keep us healthy and keep us sane and keep us on track.
All right. Remember, we're back on YouTube, youtube.com/@the ConTech crew. And get ready. A new newsletter might be hitting your inbox. So make sure you got us whitelisted. Maybe tell your friends about it. We're going to start doing some monthly kind of recaps of what we're seeing and what I'm seeing, and maybe even some guests coming in there to put out their own stuff. So you're going to want to get out there and subscribe. So go to thecontechcrew.com and subscribe to the newsletter. Back in 2020, I heard about a new software platform called Join. Within minutes of seeing Join, I knew it had the power to revolutionize collaborative project delivery. In fact, I was so sold on Join that I joined the team as its industry evangelist. Many trade shows and podcasts later, Join is now used by 50% of the ENR top 30. Why? Pre-con and ops leaders at DPR, Bolt, McCarthy, Barton Mallow, Clark, and others say that they like Join because it does two big things: collaborative, trackable decision-making, and awesomely simple visuals. Want to learn more about the power of Join? Go to www.join.build/demo to learn about how better gets built. All right, we're back. So, Anwar, talk to me a little bit about your history. You're the founder of Contrafor, but before we kind of get into what that is, what's your story? How'd you get here?
Yeah, born and raised in Lebanon. Both of my parents are in construction. My dad more on the subcontractor side, my mom more on the general contractor side. Came for grad school to Boston in 2008 and went back for a couple of years after that to work in consulting, then came back for business school in 2013 and stuck around.
Well, I mean, there's got to be a little more to that. You probably saw a few of the problems. I mean, what were some of the, I mean, that is kind of interesting because we'll get into what Contrafor does, but I think sort of the family lineage, you couldn't leave either of them alone. You kind of had to solve some problems for both. So talk to me a little bit about, Contrafor, the idea, how did this all come to fruition?
So just very, very, very high level, the way I think about it is there's a lot of gaps in software for the construction industry. And that, I think, is responsible for the lower level of productivity that we're seeing in construction. My hunch and kind of the whole thesis behind Contrafor is that there's no one piece of software that's going to solve the whole problem. And I didn't think that suddenly construction companies were going to go out and start buying all the pieces of software to fill all of the gaps that they had. And so our idea was to provide the software that contractors needed to improve their productivity, to improve their profitability on their jobs, but to really monetize on the financial product that we can serve. And so the way to think about us is that we serve technology primarily to general contractors and construction managers. And the way we primarily monetize the platform is through our early pay program that is more geared towards subcontractors and material suppliers.
So the early pay program and then the software on the front end, that's sort of it's almost supply chain issue in and of itself, right? You're connecting it. Yeah. What was there a pain point that you really saw that was the genesis of it? What was the moment when you were like, because I mean, a lot of people have had that moment and it's gone in many different directions, right? I've seen a lot of people go different directions. What was the genesis moment to, hey, I think this is what we're uniquely qualified for? What was that?
It was understanding that subcontractors are the ones financing the jobs on their own balance sheet. When I realized that the subcontractors sign their contracts with the general contractors, they go out, they purchase their materials, they bring the crews up on the job, they start paying their labor, they do the work for 30 days, and then they submit their requisitions to the GCs. It gets reviewed, it gets approved, negotiated, whatever. But then after that, they still wait another 45, 60, 90 days to get paid. And so effectively what's happening, you could have multi-billion-dollar project owners or even the government in some cases, think about all of the infrastructure projects that we have, that is hiring a very large general contractor, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars worth of revenues per year. And that GC is going out and hiring 30, 40, maybe 50 subs per project. But these subcontractors, they're doing 10, 20, maybe $30 million of revenues per year. But they're being asked to finance the job on behalf of the developer, on behalf of the project owner. That didn't look very reasonable for me.
I don't think you're the first person to see that and see the problem, but it's interesting that you went after a way to solve it. Some interesting stats. I spoke at the CFMA a couple of years back and sat through a couple sessions, and the one that blew me away was 75% of all trade contractors that go bankrupt are profitable at the time they go bankrupt. It is a cash flow issue. And having come from one, I can honestly say like that was our biggest problem. 300 trades workers, payroll to make on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, depending on what type of work you're doing. And, that was always, we were robbing Peter to pay Paul to get it through to somebody at some point, hopefully get all that money back. And I felt like we were a financial institution that dabbled in masonry at times, and it just didn't make a lot of sense. So how did building the platform, how did you attack that? So you've got a software side for the general contractors, and then an early pay program for the trade contractors. You're connecting them. What are you connecting there?
Yeah. So the first thing that we started thinking about is, okay, how can we accelerate the payment release by the general contractors? And so typically general contractors would need to have a couple of documents in place before they can release the payments. They need to make sure that that invoice is reviewed and approved. And so that's where our invoicing module comes into play. But they also need a couple of compliance documents. They need to make sure that the subcontractor's insurance policy, or at least a certificate of insurance, has been submitted to the general contractors, right? So that was the genesis of going out and building our insurance compliance module. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. Then we started seeing the subcontractors also need to submit their conditional and unconditional lien waivers. And they needed to have those on the record before the general contractor could release the payment. So then we went out and built that side of the house. And so as we built more and more of these compliance elements, we started realizing that there's multiple different departments that are touching these documents, and they're not often talking to each other, right? And they end up blaming the PM for not releasing the payment fast enough, but the PM can't do the whole work, right? They have a job to run. They can't do the work on behalf of the project controls team, and on behalf of the risk team, and on behalf of the procurement team, and on behalf of the legal team. And so you need workflows. You need properly streamlined workflows to get the accounts payable team to say, okay, this is ready for payment. And so that's what we ended up building for the general contractors. And not a lot of people think about it this way. Most general contractors today, they think about, what does this department need, right? So we ended up compartmentalizing what we did into these different steps, right? So there's the pre-qual module that handles the pre-qualification of the subs. There's the contracts module that handles administering the contracts with the subs. Then you have the insurance compliance. So each one of those really solves the problem of that specific department. And then because they're all on the same platform, the data could move freely between these different departments and or any external pieces of software that the GCs would have, right? Because we're not trying to do everything for everybody. What we don't want to do is to go out and start adding things related to project management and adding some modules related to some of the ERP aspects that they might have in other pieces of software that they might already have in place, but to connect our data to those external components that they might have.
Jacob, that's got to spur some questions.
Yeah, and actually, I'm actually even on the site right now looking at the integrations, and it's nice to see that it is some of the big players, but also some of the just overall standard ones we see in there. But kind of go back to the early payment thing. We touched on it. I know we jumped to the GC side and talked about the modules here, but we kind of glazed over what the early payment portion is. Can you kind of dive into that? Because we brought up the whole pain point that's there. They're financing this. What exactly is this early payment portion of your group?
Yeah, sure. So our early pay program, in a nutshell, is we take the subcontractor's invoice that has already been reviewed and approved by the general contractors, and we pay it to the subs as soon as it gets approved, so they don't have to wait to get paid, minus our early pay fee.
Okay.
And so the subs are getting paid 45, 60, up to 90 days early, and then we collect the funds of the invoice from the general contractor.
That's interesting. That's a good point, because it's worth that extra fee to the subcontractors. To be able to get paid earlier is worth that little fee. And then you're the ones that can bang on the door, the contractor, asking over and over where, we understand pay when pay, but we need to, we need to push on the owner for payment. Where are you guys getting? Are you guys getting financial grants or funds from different institutions to do this? Okay.
Yeah. So the way to think about us is we're not even doing the collection work better than a subcontractor necessarily. It's just that we have a large balance sheet and we can afford to wait. And while we're waiting, the subcontractor that has already gotten paid can go out there, can pick up another job, can buy the materials that they need. They can get some discounts on these materials because they're paying early, right? Like the biggest advantage that we have is we can wait, and the trades can actually do something with the money that they're getting paid early. Right? Like that's the biggest advantage for the trade is they get their money early, they can pay their teams, they can pay the labor, they can buy the materials that they need, and they can go on and take on another job using this cash flow that will generate a heck of a lot more than the fee that we're charging on the early pay side.
Yeah, that early side fee is nothing compared to the interest getting charged on cash out there right now. I mean, the cost of money is significantly increased. I have to say, like, there's very few companies in the tech world right now that are excited about the interest rates going up, but you might be because it's a unique opportunity to help those folks because that money's more expensive to them. So what was a nominal fee before is even less now, and you didn't even have to change anything.
Yeah. We did not change our rates or our fees since we started. So it's been the exact same thing since the days of zero interest rate. It does hurt us a little bit when the interest rates go up because we have to pay for our funds, but still we can afford to wait, right? So that's the biggest advantage that we're creating for the subs. It's time. They can use these funds to go out and grow, to go out and take on more jobs, and they don't have to be stuck there financing the job on their own balance sheet.
I'm going to take that that route of, I know some of the folks listening are like, wait a second, you guys are just profiting off of a problem that exists. And I think that's going to be, in my opinion, a misconception, right? I think what you're profiting and doing is you've built a business. And we talked about this beforehand. Anwar's not, out there in the world. He's not Mr. Get on Stage everywhere, the Mark Zuckerberg type, right? Because you're focused on building a business, and your business is focused on that money, on that ability to have that patience, right? That's at the core of what you do. You build these softwares and connected workflows, and you have a financial model behind it. So it's one of those things. You're building a financial entity at the same time, correct?
I mean, the way to think about it, we're the financial partner for the construction industry, right? Whether we're helping the subs through the early pay program or we're helping the subs through the software that enables their GCs to pay them faster. In both cases, we're speeding up the payment on the job.
Yeah, I think this is quite incredible. I would love to see what your GCs and really even probably the owners of it are seeing performance wise. Because when you have that kind of, all right, we're getting paid, we're not getting beat down, like we can keep moving. We'll keep working harder on this project, knowing that fund is going to come in through the door. We're not waiting an extra 90 days. I mean, that's when subcontractors, that's when field guys start losing interest in the job. We're not, we're having to fight every day to get our payment, and we're still out here being asked to do it. Have you guys seen any any of the GCs come back and just mention anything about performance or how jobs even run maybe a little bit smoother with it?
Absolutely. We have general contractors that actually specifically reached out to ask us to finance their subs faster. Right? Specifically, they cared about the early pay program. They're like, invoicing module is great, compliance is great, insurance is great, but really what we need is to help our subs, because as they took on more and more government funded jobs, that infrastructure bill is great, but man, is the government a slow payer.
Yep.
Like you have these projects that are good, profitable projects. It's just nobody can afford to stay alive to wait for these profits to come in.
Yeah, and you've uniquely positioned it so that they can keep running. And
That's the idea.
Jacob, you know this, right? Because you've been on the job site, you've seen it. The culture of how the team is running, and that I mean, we don't talk about it a lot, but on-time payment, the PMs know, and the PMs know, the supers know from the PMs. Like this chain goes down and it makes it to the ground.
Yep.
So again, if this is one like, hey, we're going to run here, and man, we're going into, with that infrastructure bill, Anwar, we're going into a time where we don't have enough people in any way, shape, or form to provide. So if you're a general contractor and you want to make happy trade contractors that are going to bid on your next project, here's a way to do it. And I'm wondering too, from that process, like, you did something very interesting. You took 3 silos, and instead of like, we're going to force you to workflow, we're like, we're going to solve your problems. But then, unbeknownst to you, we're going to use our connectability to solve some problems. What else you got in store for us there? I like, to me, that's a juicy piece of what you're building.
Well, I'll tell you, as we've grown, we started getting more and more general contractors that are really pushing the envelope on the procurement side of the house. And I can't mention some names, but it's one of the largest general contractors, one of the top 10 general contractors in the country, really pushed us on the insurance co-pilot front. And so initially, we were just collecting the certificates of insurance of the subcontractors. So they started asking us, well, can you collect the whole policy? And so we started collecting the entire policy of the subcontractors, right? Their view was that a lot of the details of the insurance of the subs actually lives in the endorsements, in the exclusions, in the full form of the policy. The COI is not worth a lot without that level of detail. And so we started collecting this, the full policies, but these are 200-300 page documents. And we realized quickly that nobody was reading these documents. Like, the GCs would collect them, but they didn't have time to read them. They didn't have time to sit down and say, like, oh, is this compliant with our contract? Is this exactly what we were hoping for or not? But what we didn't do is we didn't go out and just hire a bunch of people to sit down and read these, because nobody wants to do this. But so what we did is, because of everything that was happening on the large language model side, we were able to use cutting edge technology to parse and read those documents and compare them against what was in the contracts of the subs. Right? So suddenly, all the subcontractors needed to do is to submit their policy, and the general contractor automatically parsed these on our platform and could directly tell, oh, this is missing this item, this is good to go. And that's directly a check mark that releases payments on the AP side of the house.
That's an awesome connected problem solving, and an example. We've been talking about it for a while. Like, AI is awesome, but what do we do with it? And now you've done something. Jacob, looks like you got to jump in there.
It's everywhere. I think Copilot has gotten back to this big boom again. Everything is now accessible. They've really pushed Copilot to a point where you can kind of input it anywhere and start leveraging it. And for something like your platform, I mean, it makes sense, right? You say that they're not even reading it because it's too long. Who thinks that they don't even understand it? I guarantee you hand that to 50% of the PMs on the project. They don't know what that language means or where that goes through. I mean, it's not really their day to day. So even just to have something like that now starting to explain it, or at least notify you when it's not a good thing, man, that is right on point. And I think you probably are killing lawyers' fees here, but usually I think that's who a lot of the people too that are coming back now are saying, hey, we need our lawyers to streamline their workflow. So when they review these things, when they come back, what is the user base? Like, are you having outside consultants on your platform as well, working with like the GC so they can review this stuff and sign off on it?
What we actually did, so most trades, they don't have these policies and these certificates of insurance on hand. They're busy running the jobs. And so what we end up telling them is, you don't need to come on the platform and submit your documents if it's an insurance policy. Just invite your broker. Guess what? Your broker already has this and lives in these documents day in, day out. So just invite them to the platform and they'll submit these documents on your behalf. So now, all of a sudden, when the general contractor's risk team is requesting these documents or finds an issue with one of them, they're not bugging the subcontractors. They're directly communicating with the brokers of the subs to collect these policies. Talk about it's a very simple communication, but fewer emails going left and right, fewer back and forth, fewer version control issues. It doesn't have to be complicated. This is easy stuff. That's what we're helping.
That's amazing, because it's she said, he said, right? Too. That's the other thing you're doing is when you're reading it, I might be wrong, right? Again, because I'm not a professional at it, right? And so I could misinterpret something. And this is what the large language models are great at doing. And then what do? At the point, it goes to the broker, and the broker goes, "Oh, okay. This is what that means." And if there's a decision that needs to be made, now we can sit together and we all understand. We have the expert, the broker, the risk manager, and the trade, who's obviously got to make the decision on their policy, are now informed. And it's an important discussion. It's probably about a quarter of the time. And to your point, Jacob, it's way less contentious because it's based in fact and knowledge and research. And we just make a decision, right? We're really good at that in construction. And the rest of it is noise, man. All of that people, oh, you're working me out of a job. I can tell you right now, every trade contractor out there has a few of people who are doing these kinds of things that would be far better off used in other areas, and whose expertise is, but it could be much more leveraged, and the job they're doing could be much more fulfilling if you can use this type and leverage this type of technology. So it's great. It's a great idea, and it's cool to see this kind of stuff come through. I mean, you've got to be enjoying the things you're hearing from those folks.
We love seeing the reaction. People, I mean, just imagine, instead of spending hours and hours reading these documents to check a couple of boxes, now you're actually having meaningful conversations with your trades. Do I want this risk? Am I okay with this risk? This is what we're talking about. In some cases, that's fine. In some other cases, maybe that's not a risk that you want to take on. But at least it's an educated conversation, and it's time well spent, right? Like this is what you want to be doing as a risk manager. Ticking boxes, just checking compliance, like moving paperwork, that's not a very fulfilling career.
And you hit on something, because I used to talk about this in with the estimating side of things, because I came from the pre-con world in my last role and really loved it. But it just hit me that their first statement was, look, you go to every meeting ready to fight your way out, right? Swords drawn. You've got a million reports and things behind you. You don't know what's coming your way, but you're ready to fight. And instead, we're not coming and dropping a folder full of papers to throw at one another. We're like, we already know what we're here to talk about. Like you said, we're going to discuss the risk, discuss if it's what's something we want to do, discuss how we can mitigate that risk and get out. So not only are we not fighting our way out, we're like having really educated conversations and helping each other. And that's the process we want.
It's not a pain anymore. It's you're not having to deal with extra stress just to get through the red tape, so to say, when it's in the background and it's actually set up to help you get it done, get it out of the way, move on to the right thing.
Yeah, I may be ahead of myself here, but I'm going to ask you something, and just maybe I'm planting an idea or something, because we did a AEC integration summit last year, and couple of different things going on. But one of the ones that was really interesting is one of the groups and I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly what their overarching thing they were after was, but they basically broke down what it costs at the trade level, at the actual installer level. And then as that trade installer's money, what they cost, goes up through the chain, and how much it keeps getting inflated because of the things and the people that need to deal with it. And so I'm wondering if there's an opportunity here for owners to see the data that says, listen, jobs that pay faster are cheaper, because look, I've talked to a couple that are like, oh, well, when I work with this group, they don't pay me for 90 days. So I charge them this much. And hey, I work with this group, they pay me in 30. Boom, I charge them this much. So I'm wondering, is there an opportunity in your data? Are you already looking at that?
Yeah, so right now we have anecdotal data. You really need quite a bit more. Maybe we need another couple of years before we can say statistically what's happening. But we already can tell you if the trade has an option between putting their A team on this job or this other job, where one of them pays quickly and the other doesn't, guess where they're going to put their people?
Yep. And everybody wants the A team, man.
I mean, it makes a difference. It makes a difference. These are folks that probably have worked together well, probably have done a number of these jobs together. Sometimes these jobs tend to be a little bit higher stress. Sometimes they tend to have a little bit more complexity, but they also tend to have higher margins. So this is exactly where you want your best effort.
I want my A team on my riskiest jobs at times because they're the most collaborative, well-oiled, most experienced, and look, shared risk, shared reward, baby. There's money in risk everywhere you go because owners know this, right? They know, GCs know this. They know the jobs that are going to be the riskiest for them, and they want to make sure they get that A team, and you're giving them a chance. I'll say, to the folks listening, if you want to get that data faster, well, then go call this guy up and get yourself a demo and try it out, because then we'll get more data. Because I'm all about that data. Jacob, I'm wondering, any final questions before we roll it through? This is Anwar. This has been awesome, man. I appreciate this.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to that point of the A team and really what risk there is. I mean, being in the consultant world, we have our grade A clients and we have our grade C clients. And grade C clients, there's a 1.5 multiplier on there, knowing that, hey, we're not going to get paid for an extra 90 days. We're not going to turn down work. We don't want to turn down work. That's sometimes silly, but you're going to pay a little bit more because I know it's going to be a little bit rougher. And so if it's smoother process, if it's there, it's great. Is there anything, so coming out in the future, you guys looking at doing anything matching with actual construction progress of the building versus what is being paid?
Yeah, so the very next step for us is to expand the procurement suite down to the material suppliers and the distributors, because we realized if we could help our trades, if we could help our subs directly speed up their payments to the material suppliers, and if we could help the material suppliers get some visibility on the orders that they're going to expect, guess what? The distributors can plan better. They're not going to get surprised with a big order overnight on a crunch time, and they don't have to extend terms to be able to win the jobs themselves, because the distributors do compete on terms just to be able to get their product on the project. And so if we could kind of level the playing field a little bit there, where they can really compete on quality and price, not on terms, that really helps everybody in the supply chain.
100%.
Yeah,
agree.
I mean, that's a great opportunity to extend that down and integrate that data and show, because but we have a people power issue, but we also have now exposed through this process that we have a very delicate supply chain across the board, and data to enable visibility into the supply chains, possibly one of the biggest topics I hear these days. It's AI, because nobody will shut up about it, even us, myself included. It's data, and then it's supply chain. I mean, it's that's what they're worried about in this upcoming year. So it's cool to see you guys extend that into that space. Any other things coming out? So as you do that, where can people go find and learn a little bit more about what you guys are up to right now?
Yeah, if you can find us on Contrafor.com, we have our numbers there. Actually, the whole team is here. So it's not like you're going to be reaching out to somebody and it goes into the ether, into some foreign team elsewhere. Like, everybody's here. Most of us have worked in the field. If not, we probably still have a couple of steel toe boots and a couple of hard hats. Like we understand what construction is
That's
about.
it's awesome, and I'll say, Jacob, I just made the run into the consulting world myself, and man, I want to get paid on time too. So hey, if you want to extend this into and add some of us consultants in there, we're happy to do it too. Because man, that's who knew that getting paid was such a big deal. I never realized how much I like that paycheck underneath my pillow and putting my head on it. Now I got to chase that invoicing. So I'll probably be calling you to learn a few things, Anwar. Well, thank you so much for sitting down. I hope everybody listening in learned as much as I did, because it was really awesome to learn more from you. Don't worry, he's not going anywhere, because we're going to get into the construction technology news of the week. So, Jacob, what do you got for us? I think this one lines up great to where we were.
Yep. So go ahead and jump on in. I've been talking about this for about a year now. And it's finally basically available on the consumer market. So Copilot, starting of 2024, they finally released it to just about anybody on the business licenses. Before, you had to have like an E3 license, you have to have 300 of them, and then you could sign up. Now everybody's available. So beginning of this month, I got my Copilot license. I got my add-ins into all my Microsoft Office apps, and it's been incredible. Basically, the article is just talking about how it's been released, how it's kind of out for all businesses now. You can kind of read through it and see what the requirements are, how you get it. It is an extra $30 a month on top of what you do. But if you're paying for Chat GPT on the side, then that's 20 right there. But or you can just keep them all. So all I do is talk to LLMs all day long now.
Dude, I'm loving this because I am one of those small businesses right now. This is my world.
Yeah.
And I do have, surprise, surprise, I have a Microsoft setup with an E3 license, but I am in just that small business world. So I saw the Copilot and I was all excited. And then I realized I can't go get it because I'm, it's not accessible. So literally, I have a project planned, Jacob. We had MEP Innovations this past week, and then I'm back home and I have a little time in between consulting gigs. Man, I'm getting ready to fire this baby up. You better watch out. The crew might even get some Copilot fun.
It was incredible. You even get Copilot Studio, so you can go make your own. I literally loaded up some playbooks from inside the company and put it onto almost a chat bot that the teams can go through Teams and find them. It's amazing. It's going to be awesome for businesses as they grow, to allow people to understand where they can go find all the correct information, and it just doesn't get
Before
lost.
I ask Anwar on this one, I want Jacob, if somebody's listening who's got that license, where would you send them first? Like, what's the first thing they should do tactically to like just kind of get warmed up? Because I'm going to be honest with you, like even for me, somebody who's been using ChatGPT and a couple of the others, I still get that that twinge of nervousness when I go to do something for business, right? So where do you go first?
So if you have the Copilot license, it's all secure inside of your organization. Go to your email. It's inside of Outlook. If you have a long email, it's going to summarize for you, give you some action items. If you have basically need to write an email, you can ask it to frame it out for you. It's incredible. The other thing too is I am now using it on Teams. Every one of my Teams meetings is recorded, and it will send me meeting minutes and action items after every single one of my meetings that's recorded.
All right.
That
there you
works
go,
out
guys.
pretty well.
You got a few steps. Anwar, I'm interested because you're really working in this world right now. So what are some of your thoughts on it?
What was very exciting for us to see is that something is different about AI in construction. Most technologies, when they hit the market, it's really the younger folks that pick them up, and it takes a while, and it's kind of an uphill battle to convince the higher ups to start to take a look. But with AI, it feels like everybody got excited about just the potential of artificial intelligence. And it started with ChatGPT. It started with a chatbot, but now people are starting to see the power of LLMs, the power of generative AI. And so there's so many things that people are excited about, even if they're not necessarily the most exciting.
Yeah, there's the data to back that up. I mean, we saw this, and I forget who it was. So if you're listening and it was you, just hit me up and let me know it was you. Tag me on LinkedIn. Say this is where you got this info from. but it was a survey of executives, and on the top of their mind was AI. And this is the first technology in the boost of technologies for construction that passed everybody up and ended up on their sheets. I remember, trying to talk to them about robotics, about mixed reality and augmented reality and virtual reality, about BIM even. And the length of time it took to get that into what we're concerned about today. And the data is showing they're concerned right here, right now. So the data backs you up, man. Jacob, what else you got for us, buddy?
Going to a little sister site of what our normal construction dive is, there is facilities dive out now. So if you are a facilities guy like myself and want to learn more, go sign up for facilities dive. But got here is decarbonization will require urgency, technology, investments in 2024. Now, this headline, don't think anybody is surprised by that, right? I pulled this one because I think 2024 is going to be the moment of sustainability. People have made promises, the ESG is going through, and now we're having to track it, do it, meet them. I think a lot of 2023 was people learning about it and hearing about it. And it was buzzwords. I think it's going to get real this year of how do we do it? We need help and what's going to happen. So the article is pretty good. I think the one biggest thing in here is JLL did a report and it forecasts that out of all these promises that have been made, they see about 25% of them actually being satisfied by 2030. So all these companies making your ESG goals, they're saying only a quarter of you are really on pace to kind of do this. So that's where I kind of really feel like this is going to happen. And to tell you the truth, I ran this through my co-pilot so it could give me a summary real quick. And the 3 key points from it is just building tenants demand low carbon spaces. So you're trying to get people back into your office or rent from your property. They want low carbon spaces and they want to see it. Investors and lenders value sustainability performance, which is pretty cool, right? So now they're wanting to see metrics. They want to see what you're doing on this. And then regulations require emissions reporting and reduction. And this one affects me directly because I'm doing work in New York City. New York City's local law 97 is a insane local law. If you have not heard about it, they're basically giving you a benchmark to actually hit on energy usage. It's a moving benchmark. They update it every 5 minutes. There's an RSS feed that you can literally get that tells you that moving benchmark. So now as a manager of a facility, you're going to be like, holy crap. 5 minutes ago, we were fine. Now it's peak performance time and we're over. Go cut the boilers, right? I mean, it's quite insane, but I love it from the fact of live data, streaming data, understanding real-time performance, right? It really makes sense. So article is a really good one, kind of hits all those bullets, kind of walks through it all. I suggest everybody go give that one a read and check out facilities.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jacob. This is the year that it's really the rubber's going to hit the road. We consistently have been hearing it. I've been hearing it from owners. I think some of the trepidation is around really getting it measured correctly. The measurements are not perfect yet. And, some owners are worried about, listen, if I am self-attestating what I'm doing and I'm taking in the trucking of my building products into my overall carbon score and my other person isn't, then I'm not being measured on a level playing field. And I think that always causes, I think if I had to look at why only 25% will make it, I think more could make it if we were really hard and fast on how it's measured and how it's reported, and then we can push to it. So I think from the construction side, that's a key component to the built process and how we do it. And I think there's innovations coming out around it. And interestingly, dude, this is not like that RSS feed is not new, man. And this is where it's kind of interesting when I come and talk about my history. Remember, I got my start in ski resort business. Something people don't understand is that most ski resorts, most lifts are run with electricity. And one of my most important projects and most lifeline projects was in Lion's Head here at Vail. we had a gentleman, this is way back in the day, and I don't know what they do today, but back then, 4 screens monitoring from Holy Cross Electric here in town the amount of electrical usage, and when they would get close to crossing over the usage lines. Now, interestingly, the way that you offset that in a ski resort is all of those lifts have to have diesel engines to run in case the power is cut for the entire mountain. You have to be able to get people off the mountain. So there is redundancy. And we would schedule and fire up those diesels because we had to test them anyway. So whenever we were getting close on the peak electrical, we would fire up a few of the different lifts on their diesel engines and get the testing done and prove that it worked, and also cut our electrical to keep it right below that. Because man, that cost jump is huge. So this whole process is not new. And the interesting thing is we're starting to tie it to financials, and that's, hey man, show me how I'm measured and I'll show you how I act. And our grids are at max capacity in a lot of places. So this is going to be a critical component of, maybe it's not, Jacob, hey, go shut off the boilers, but maybe it's like, with the electrification of so much, it's like, hey, that side of the hotel, we're not going to pack it. We're not going to run the elevators over there. We're going to push everybody over into here, and we're going to predict those kinds of things. Or in office buildings, in New York, Anwar, I know this is the case. A lot of that stuff is fired up and controlled via IoT, and you can shut it down as people are gone, sense things. That's the kind of stuff we're going to need to do.
I think it's going to be also an interesting opportunity for folks to learn from what Tesla is doing, right? Like maybe you want to try to store some of that energy when it's not expensive and bring it back to the grid when it is at peak pricing.
But hey, if Tesla's selling it back into the grid, right? So like, sell when it's high, man. If you've got solar, maybe you can hang on to it for a while and then sell it when it's high. You'll be energy commodity traders over time at our own houses. That's a sick one there, buddy. And I'm going to jump because my news is going to follow right along with you here in really what is waste, right? 5 types of waste management, because one of the other components to carbon and decarbonization is looking at waste and defining it. This is another great one. Everybody hears me. This is a CMEX Ventures. I signed up long time ago for their ConTech and tacos. I get it every week. Like, you guys listen to way more articles from it than you think. Couple of quick things. What is waste management? Waste management is a streamlined process that involves the disposal, reduction, reuse, and prevention of waste. And there's a ton around legal and health and safety and cost savings and, your reputation and, your impact on the environment. What I like here is they really go into, 5 levels of what it means. The first level is reduce, right? That's the easy one. That's what we're after with BIM and prefab and, offsite and modular, is minimizing the amount needed from the beginning. Just lowers your overall waste if you're more effective and efficient with what you use. Reuse, utilizing resources repeatedly to extend their lifespan and reduce the need for new material and production. So in places where we can recycle, reuse the materials over time. Third, recycle, transforming waste into new products to promote the circular use of materials. This is a great one. I think of Urban Machine when I think of this, right? The robotics that can go in and take that wood, pull the pieces out of it, send it back for milling and get it ready for new jobs. Like, that's an ability to create a circular economy around it. You were hitting on this one, Anwar. Recovery, extracting energy from waste through various processes, contributing to sustainable resource management. Jacob, this is where you're talking about using off gas or waste from, heat waste to heat the building, using those kinds of things to create, again, another circular piece. And then finally, landfill, safely disposing of waste and design areas to minimize environmental impact. So if you go through this, there's a bunch of different links and stuff you can use, but man, it's a great way to kind of take a look at the different ways we can look at waste management and achieve some of those decarbonization, achieve some of those goals. Jacob, as a facilities and construction guy, I'm interested. What's your thoughts?
I actually love it. I think it puts it in a new context. There's so many articles. I mean, even if the one that we just went through that just highlights that it's a problem, right? There's not very much out there of like, hey, this is what you should be looking at. These are, 5 levels of actually waste management. You can actually go put this into use, actually coming out of it. I will say, as a 90s kid growing up, reduce, reuse, recycle, I'm glad to see that that's actually still in effect. That's great. I was worried about quicksand and turning the light on in the car, but I'm glad that actually reduce, reuse, recycle is still here. I think this is really cool. I'm a huge fan of CMEX and CMEX Ventures. They're a great company and love what they're doing.
Anwar, I'm interested. Waste management, not definitely something on top of mind there in New York City and around where you're operating, and probably for most of your clients as well.
Yeah, I mean, for our clients, I'm sure that this is top of mind because regulation is pushing, the financial incentives are there. I think the biggest challenge now is just measurement and tracking, which I also think creates a good opportunity for folks. This is an interesting moment in time, and I think the folks that do go out and start to improve their measurements, there's businesses that can be built just for measuring our impact, whether it's about waste management, whether it's about energy consumption, energy use. There's a lot of potential in this space, and we're just at the early
innings here. Wow, great call, because it is an opportunity for innovation. It's an opportunity for new business models that, look, there's a ton of money in waste, and we're basically wasting that money. So why not make it a business where that actually saves and promotes the environment, saves and promotes construction businesses and trade contractors and building product manufacturers and lessen the landfill? Like, you can hang your hat on that one and go to bed every night thinking I'm doing the right thing. And just a little teaser, there might be a couple of folks coming on the show this year to talk about some of that. I'm highly interested in that opportunity. So I'm going to spin us into one that's interesting. I don't know where this one's going to go, but it was a surprise to me when I saw it. So I thought, all right, I got to cover it. Amazon and iRobot nix deal. Roomba maker lays off a third of its staff. So obviously, the Amazon and iRobot merger, Amazon was going to acquire them. It was an estimated $1.7 billion deal. So I think iRobot had counted on that, and so in some of their organizational structure, they didn't see without it how they would do it. So it's about 350 employees in a restructuring plan, saving them about $150 million. But this was troubled from the minute it started. There was regulatory probes into it as to whether or not this was going to give Amazon too much of a monopoly. We've talked about the Roomba here for a really long time. If you think it's just a robot that cleans your floors, you're absolutely wrong. Like, it was doing far more than that. We believed and had pontificated on the show here over the years that it would understand the flow of people into your house, understand your floor plan of your home, and then be able to generate and provide you information on, when you need more household items. If you needed a remodel, those plans could be provided. Like, there was a lot to this. And, you can buy prefabricated head walls on Amazon. So don't kid yourself. They're in every business, man. And if you don't think they're coming for us, at some point they're going to come for us. But we got a little slowdown here. Jacob, I'm just interested. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I actually find this, incredibly interesting in the fact that I think iRobot has lost market share over the past 2 years. There's been a series of new ones coming out. If you haven't gone and seen like what a Roborock does versus an iRobot, these things have put LiDAR in them. Like, iRobot still doesn't have LiDAR and the other ones are. So it's an interesting thing how the EU kind of came in and said this is going to be a monopoly, because I actually feel like iRobot's losing market share. And this, I think actually Amazon probably would have taken this and blown it up, like Blink, the camera, and now all of a sudden that's their camera, right? Instead of Ring, they sell everything in Blink, which is kind of incredible. But I think this is interesting. The fact that the EU kind of stepped in and did this, I'm wondering where else it went wrong. I also think if you thought about this sale that would have gone on, I think pre-pandemic, I think 1.7 billion for an acquisition of a company that big seems low, doesn't it? So there was a lot of things that I kind of wondered about what was going on here, but
it is. Anwar, you look like you're a little interested in that one.
I mean, I'm always looking around us to see what's happening in the worlds of mergers and acquisitions, because it does kind of shake up the landscape rather dramatically. All I take from it is that doing mergers and acquisitions is hard. It's not done till it's done, and even the pros, somebody like Amazon, can still mess up something.
Well said. Doing mergers and acquisitions is hard at any level. Trust me, I have experience with it. Operationally, bringing them together, getting them organized and done is not easy. Just a couple other ones at the end there. Adobe abandoned its deal to buy Figma, and NVIDIA walked away from ARM. And then I think Meta sold off GIF library Giphy to Shutterstock. All because of things that are going on in the EU and the UK. And that's also a shift there to start thinking that it's not just the US regulatory power that's going to make a difference. The EU and the UK are really stepping up to play a significant role. People laugh at GDPR, but that was an EU UK, and we're starting to see maybe we need it over here. And just cool stuff to watch. So that was some great news, guys. Go ahead, Jacob. You got one more?
Yeah. Yep. Just on that, the EU and the UK, they have power, and you got to realize it. They forced Apple to go to USB-C. They're the reason Apple changed all their chargers to USB-C. I mean, Apple had this monopoly of a lightning cord market, and they had to change it to sell their phone.
Yeah.
That is a very powerful thing. Yep. I am so happy with all of it too. I love it. I don't have to have 6 cords.
I just went out and bought a couple of the multi-chargers of the USB-Cs because I'm so stoked. And hey, listen, Apple, if you thought that was no good, it is going to force me to get the next one of these that comes out. So I have the Lightning one, and that my whole world is integrated into one cord. One ring to rule them all, Jacob. I'm all for it. So awesome. That was a great way to end it. Anwar, thank you so much for sitting down and bringing all your insights to the news, and then letting everybody in on kind of what you guys are doing at Contrafor.
Thank you, guys.
Dude, it's always fun to sit down with you. Haven't seen you in person in a while, but we're getting back out there, so maybe I'll be seeing you soon.
Hey, it's a new year. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you for tuning in today to geek out for our interview with Anwar Ghauche. To read all our news stories, learn more about our guests, and to listen to this show, visit thecontechcrew.com. This is the ConTech Crew signing out. Until next time, enjoy the ride and geek out.